So this is a short video on the urinary system. Okay, so what does the urinary system do for us? When we metabolize proteins, we end up with a byproduct of nitrogen. And nitrogenous wastes are toxic to the body, and so we have to get rid of them. And the best way to get rid of them is to pee them away. So the kidneys dispose of that. It disposes of other toxins and drugs and excess ions like uh, excess bicarbonate ions or sodium ions or anything like that. So it basically takes the waste products out of our body, out of our blood, and puts them in the urine. The kidneys are also really responsible for maintaining your blood pressure. They're the most important organ for blood pressure. They produce a hormone called erythropoietin that makes you make red blood cells, so it prevents anemia. And it converts vitamin D to an active form of vitamin D. Very important. So when people are on dialysis, the nitrogenous waste and the toxins are removed, but blood pressure is not maintained, so they need drugs. Red blood cell production is not maintained, so they need to take a synthetic erythropoietin, and they have to take activated vitamin D because they can't activate their vitamin D. Now, the kidneys are the main organ of the urinary system, but there's also the ureters, the bladder, and the urethra. The ureters are the tubes that go from the kidneys to the bladder. The bladder is what you think it is. It's the holding bag for pee, and the urethra is the tube that goes from the bladder to the outside. It kind of looks like this with the kidneys here, the ureters here, the bladder here, and the urethra to the outside there. So the kidneys are about the size of a bar of soap, and they're held on the back body wall, just kind of just below your ribs. The right kidney is slightly lower than the left because the liver is big and it's in the way on the left-hand side. The right kidney is a little bit higher. So it's just at the level of the last rib. So I'm not going to worry about the renal hilum. There's an adrenal gland that sits on top of each kidney, adrenal on kidney, and that was, we talked about that in endocrine system. It is surrounded by fat. There's called the perirenal fat capsule. It's a cushion, and it's like kind of packing material. If people lose weight really quickly, the kidneys can droop, and there can be kidney damage because of it. There's also some fibrous connective tissue, the capsule, and the fascia. That just kind of hold it in place. I'm not going to worry about the regions. Suffice it that there's a cortex and a medulla, the outside and the inside. They each have their functions. We're not going to get into kidney function at all in this lecture, so we're just going to move on. It looks like this in cross section. These are the tubes that collect the urine. The lumen of these tubes is actually outside the body. Urine is produced here and is collected here, and it makes it down this tube to the bladder. If every beat of your heart, 1/4 of the blood that leaves the heart goes through the kidneys. So in each circuit, so in any given minute or any given hour, 1/4 of your blood circulation goes through your kidneys. The kidneys filter the blood constantly. Okay, so the kidneys are made up of these little structures called nephrons. Nephrons are the structural and functional unit of the kidney. I'll repeat that. The structural and functional unit of the kidney is the nephron. And there's 1 million nephrons in each kidney, so you got a couple of million nephrons. And whatever happens in the nephron really is what happens in the kidney times 1 million, because that's really all the kidney is a collection of nephrons. Each nephron has two parts. There's a place where it's filtered and a place where the reabsorption happens. The filtering place is called the corpuscle, and the reabsorption happens in the tubule. It looks like this. Shan't worry about any of that. So there's a proximal convoluted tubule, loop of Henle, and a distal convoluted tubule. But really what it comes down to is this. The blood comes through this artery. Don't worry about the name of it. It's filtered out like a coffee filter here at the capsule. The filtrate, which is all the blood plasma, so everything that's contained in the blood comes out here, and then it goes down these tubes where reabsorption happens all the way along here. So what happens is we dump everything out of the blood. By the time it gets here, it's urine. We dump everything out of the blood, and then we reabsorb everything we want to keep. It's kind of like when you are looking for your keys in your purse. You dump the whole purse out, and then you put everything back in except for your keys. So what happens is out of the blood comes all the sodium and all the calcium and the potassium and the magnesium and the glucose and everything that's dissolved in the blood, all the nutrients, the nucleic acids and the amino acids, everything that we need, all the nutrients, everything comes out of the blood at this point. And then as we go along here, all those things that we want to keep, like glucose and amino acids and such, are all reabsorbed back into the blood until all that's left over is some water and the waste products, the stuff that we don't reabsorb. So really the kidney spends far more of its time reabsorbing than it does filtering. We say that it filters the blood, but it filters everything out of the blood and reabsorbs that which we want to keep. That's a very important thing. The kidney is the number 3 user of energy in our bodies, and that's because it takes energy to reabsorb. It doesn't take any energy to filter. There's a couple of different types of nephrons. We're not going to get into that at all. So really, filtration, reabsorption, and we can also secrete a little bit as well. It doesn't really matter. It's not a really important thing, but this is the most important thing, the reabsorption, tubular reabsorption. And so filtration is non-selective and it's passive. Filtrate is formed. We don't call it urine yet because it is really just filtered blood. Everything but the blood cells and the big proteins. Reabsorption is active. We reabsorb everything we want to keep. This is a little chart as to where different things get reabsorbed. I'm not worried about that for you guys. Secretion is reabsorption in reverse. It's a little bit of potassium and some hydrogen ions, so it maintains the right pH, and that's about it. We get rid of substances that aren't already in the filtrate. We don't reabsorb any nitrogen waste, so that's why it ends up in the urine. So I'm not going to get too crazy about this. We make about 1 liter to 2 liters of urine a day, but we filter 180 liters of blood. So we filter about 45 gallons of blood, and we make about 1/4 of a gallon of urine, 1/4 to 1/2 a gallon of urine a day. So that means about 43 gallons, 178 liters are reabsorbed. And what's amazing is there's only 5 liters of blood, 3 liters of plasma, so we make 180 liters out of 3 liters. So that means all the blood goes through multiple times, about 60 times a day it gets filtered. Urine ends up being anywhere from clear to deep yellow. It is slightly acidic, and it is sterile. It's not dirty. So ureters are little tubes that have peristalsis and runs down to the bladder. Peristalsis means that you can move pee to your urine even if you're laying down. Peristalsis, as you remember, is a rhythmic contraction of the muscular walls that propels things along. We saw that in the digestive system. The urinary bladder is just a bag. It's a muscular bag. The urethra opens out of it. The ureters open into it. There's 2 ureters and 1 urethra. We call the muscle the detrusor muscle. When you have to pee, that's what contracts. It holds about 500 mils of urine. So we should pee, if we're peeing 1.5 liters a day, we should pee 3 times a day. The urethra is a thin-walled tube, carries from the bladder to the outside. It's mostly by peristalsis, but also by the force of contraction of the bladder. In males, it's long, and it carries urine and sperm. In females, it's only urine, and it tends to be very short. There are sphincters that make you not pee. The external is voluntary, and you can hold your pee. The internal is involuntary, smooth muscle, and is normally held closed unless the bladder is full. So, I've already said it's short. And micturition is what we call peeing. So that's it. That's all we're going to talk about with the urinary system.